I'm Sadie Hansen,
And I'm Olivia Weidrich.
and we're going to present our Do Democracies Align project today. We're just going to have a discussion on what we found similar and different based on the results that we got from our tests and articles that we read. So the first part of the assignment was to determine what the independent and dependent variables were. So I found that the independent variable is the freedom level of the state, and then the alliance of the states is the dependent variable. So most of the states that were in this project, I've realized were like partially free or not free. So I kind of consider them just to be not democratic states. And then the free states were democratic states, or only a few, but whether or not they were free, that determined if they had an alliance with another free state.
Okay, and then I'm going to be talking about one of the articles that I found about what is the Alliance for Democracy. So basically, we just discussed that democracies or democratic democracies form alliances with democratic democracies, and partially free democracies form alliances with other partially free democracies. And it just kind of like shows like going back to like the UN and NATO, how they form certain alliances to promote like a certain agenda and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I actually did the same article as her, and kind of what I got from that was that it's important to like maintain the balance of power between democratic states, just because they are free and they're entitled to do pretty much whatever they like, as long as there's like a general grounds for what's right and wrong, like morally, in the world. I feel like most states tend to follow those, and if the democratic states follow those, I feel like a lot of others will follow behind, just because they are kind of free to do whatever they want.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. And then I guess for setting up the hypothesis, so the hypothesis states that democratic states form alliances with other democracies more frequently than with states that are non-democracies. So like I said, there weren't many free states in the project that we had to like find whether or not they had an alliance with other free states. But more likely than not, the free states would align with each other. I think almost all of them had an alliance with each other, and then the either partially free or not free states either had alliances with each other or no alliances at all. So they kind of stood by themselves, which isn't the greatest for if there is like ever a threat to that nation or state, because of the fact that like if there happens to be a war or something, it's going to be harder for them to get all those resources because of the fact that they don't have anyone to rely on financially, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I kind of think it just like shows that if you have like similarities between certain groups, that they're obviously going to align with each other. You're not going to find like a heavily democratic state aligned with like a heavily like non-democratic state, like very much not free. And so it just kind of proves that you align with similarities and you're not so much going for the differences of other states.
Yeah, and then as far as like testing the hypothesis, I feel like NATO was like a perfect example of like how democratic states tend to align with each other, because during the Cold War, NATO was created just to have a treaty between the US, Canada, and like Western European countries. And it was important for them to align because of the fact that the US was such a strong country at the time, that it helped maintain the Soviet Union's power. And soon after, they dispersed. And I think aligning is important, just because if you know that your state is vulnerable, like to the threat of war or other things, that go on in the world, it's always nice to have someone else, having your back, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the Cold War is a really good example in NATO and stuff like that. And yeah, it just shows that, I mean, there is people that have your back, but stuff like that, and but that doesn't mean that that can't change in the future or something like that.
Yeah, also even like the article that we both read, the An Alliance of Democracies, they kind of referenced like how it would be like, super beneficial to democratic states to form an alliance group, specifically for democratic states, just because they all kind of have the same goal in mind.
Mhm.
And if they do align, like if there's ever a possibility that there's like a threat, like even, you never know if like North Korea, for instance, or something like strikes, you're going to want to have people helping you to fight back. Not necessarily like physically, but like they're going to help you financially and all sorts of other things that, as long as they stand for the same thing that you stand for as a state, um, they will, kind of have your back. But I feel like if that were to ever be like an option in the future to like form an alliance, it might be, a good idea to think about joining it, just because there are, benefits to being aligned with other democratic states. Like I said, they kind of have the same goal in mind.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're always, like, there for you, like, they'll help you in any times that you may have, and whether it is, like, at war, just, like, during peace times, like, you have at least someone to fall back on or multiple people to fall back on, so
Yeah. Um, and then I guess so, testing like the results that we got, Olivia and I had the same chi-square results and p-value results. Um, and I came to the conclusion that there is a pattern in the data in the real world, just because, we've seen it, not only like just by looking at it, but like numbers pretty much line up to, where it's it shows that, democratic states align with each other over other states that aren't, free,
Mhm.
necessarily, just because, numerous reasons. But like I've been saying, it's, important that they align because they have similar, goals in mind, and they have morals, and they tend to, follow treaties and all of that, just because they know that it's not only going to reflect them as like a nation, but like, them as if someone wanted to align with them.
Yeah, I basically came to the same conclusion, just that, um, we align for certain reasons, and we keep those, democracies, like, helping each other. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely, but
Yeah. So I guess I kind of wrapped it up and said that democratic states do form alliances with other democracies more frequently than with non-democracies. And I said that it has been set up and is likely to happen in the real world, just because it has happened in the past. Some of those organizations are still standing today, and most of the members in the organizations like NATO and UN tend to be democratic states, because, like I said, there's so many more benefits to being aligned with other democratic states. And then also, like if there were to be an alliance of democratic states ever formed or established, it'd probably be the largest and most powerful alliance groups in the world, just because democratic states, they're free, they're free to believe in what they want, and yeah, there's just a lot more benefits to that.
mhm. Yeah, I think it helps, like, the world in general, just to know that there are more free states than there are of, like, even, like, partially free and stuff like that and not free, to, like, show other countries that, like, they're here for you and that they'll always help you and that they have those
Yeah, I
alliances.
mean, even like the countries that are like um not free, even if like they're trying to like get their freedom
Mhm.
by, let's say going to war, they're fighting for like
Yeah.
human rights, civil rights. um More likely than not, I would assume the democratic states would back them, because like the civilians and native people to that state particularly, just because that's what democracies believe in, is having those personal freedoms and rights. So,
Yeah, they'll always back the ones fighting for their freedom, not taking it, so
right, well, that's it for me.
yep, that's
Thanks for
about it.
watching.